Welcome to the Forum for Nonprofits. Each week, we feature a different charitable organization that provides services to the South Florida community. Presented as a public service by Beasley Media Group, Incorporated. And now, here's today's show.
Hey, welcome, nonprofit community. It is a somewhat balmy, grayish day today here in South Florida, but we can't always have the sun and we need the rain, so it's all good. Hey, it's Kara Zimmerman, the proud host of the Forum for Nonprofit radio show. It's a unique opportunity for me and hopefully for all of you to hear from the best of the best pillars in our community that are doing work that a lot of times we don't know about, we don't hear about, but they really make the wheels turn in the help world, making our community better. And I get to interview them, and I love my little job. It's just great. It's a moment I want to also thank the Spirit of Giving Network for sponsoring our program and understanding the need to support nonprofits, to give them an opportunity to talk together, collaborate, schmooze, have breakfast, donate, find out ways to better ways of communication, what's new in that area. They're always the cutting edge of nonprofit information. They do the Back to School Bash. Hopefully we'll have that this year, going back to school, and holiday gift drive and the football things at FAU. They really, they are such a nonprofit, like so many of us, with, a very skeletal staff doing so much. And today, I bet Nancy's going to tell us that that's what she does. We have Nancy Brinker today. She's the co-founder of Promised Fund of Florida. She's up here in West Palm Beach, directly from West Palm Beach. Nancy, talking to us down here in Boca Raton. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure, Kara, to be with you all, and I love what you're doing. I think it's an important asset for the nonprofit community to know they can talk to you and talk to everyone.
Yeah, it really is. I always am curious if this format takes place anywhere else. Maybe we can take it on the road and go big, Nancy. We'll go. Yeah. We'll be the Forum for Nonprofits. That's worldwide.
Right. That's right. You got it.
I think you have to think big, don't you, if you're going to have a little nonprofit?
You have to think big. You have to think big. You have to start small and think big.
Yeah.
Or think big and go small. One or the other. They both work. They're different strategies.
Well, what has been your tell us about, Nancy, about your life and how you got to be the co-founder of something called Promise Fund. I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting nosedive into all jigs and jags of what happened. Well,
Kara, it probably isn't an interesting story to a lot of people, but it is kind of an unusual place to come from, because I had to build it all myself, anything I've ever done, and not without the help of thousands and thousands of people, by the way. But it isn't like I graduated from college, with I wasn't one of the great, Rhodes Scholars, but I managed to get where I am because of mostly a passion and my need to fix things. So I am also the founder of Susan G. Komen, which is well known throughout the United States and in many countries around the world at this point. I did that 42 years ago when my sister Susan died of breast cancer at the age of 36 and made me promise that I would cure this disease. And beyond that I would take care of the poor who are suffering from it. And that came from her experience at sitting in a cancer center, endless hours with few therapies that we at least got the use of as a family because we could afford it, but others didn't, and she saw how they suffered. And she suffered a lot too. It wasn't only one-sided. In any event, in the many, many years I've worked on this, I realized, and the Komen Foundation became very, very large, and I still do my things that I can to support it, but I'm not as good in a large organization because I like to fix things. I like to take problems, deconstruct them and fix them. And I was not happy as much money. The Komen Foundation, in the time that I was running it and leading it, raised and gave over $3.2 billion. $2 billion of it to research, cutting-edge research, and then in 130 or 40 communities around the world, to another $2 billion to aid programs to develop more community health and navigation and care for the poor. Unfortunately, disparities have been while the death rate of breast cancer itself has increased, or has decreased, almost 40% from 1989 to the present, these statistics do not hold in the community of under-resourced people. And I live in one right now, which is Palm Beach, Florida. We have 85,000 women largely in West Palm Beach, but going towards the Everglades. And that community, which was at one time and still is agricultural manufacturing, who have no medical home and have no doctors and have had no screenings in their life on any continued regular basis. Cervical and breast cancer. Cervical and breast cancer are still two of the leading cancer killers in the cancer world. And it's when I saw a report that had been done by the Women's Philanthropic Health Alliance, which is a very credible source, that Florida was 49 out of 50 states in the benefits and care and health care we return to women, I really kind of flipped my lid and I said, I'm back here after all these years living in Palm Beach, because I spent a part of my career also overseas working for the government. And I said, you got to start at home. Look at this. And I spent about 2 years, a better part of 2 years, looking carefully at the systems we had in place, what was happening in our particular county. After all, Florida is now the third largest state and we, Palm Beach, are in the third largest county with the greatest degree of poverty. And I really didn't like it. I felt terrible about it. I thought it was unhealthy. I think it is very unhealthy for a community or a state the size of this state to have those kinds of statistics. They create not just more poverty, but civil unrest. And when you know that there are things you can do, you yourself can do to screen people, to find disease early, to cure them early. After all, breast and cervical cancer are almost 99% curable when they're found in their earliest stages. What was I was ashamed of myself. I sat here and I thought, well, what are you doing about it? My friend was right, my girlfriend, who dropped this women's report off in my mailbox, by the way. That's where I found it the first time. And I really was ashamed of myself that I hadn't done it earlier. So I said, okay, what am I going to do? So I gathered my two best friends, one who heads up the community foundation here, and the other who's an extraordinarily successful businesswoman. And I said, okay, I need you all to co-found with me an organization. We're going to promise to our community that we are going to have as many people as we can, as many women screened for these two diseases and sent through a continuum of care that they can depend on and can return to their normal lives. The biggest problem we have here, aside from not having enough Medicaid funding and enough, we don't have state taxes, but we do have property taxes. The next biggest problem we have are these very large for-profit hospital systems, probably the worst mix you could have in a community. So you've got for-profit hospital systems, for those listening who don't understand the difference, unlike not-for-profit systems like Aventus, like Baptist, like the big ones you hear in the state, who have not-for-profit charities with which they can give money back to the community. These hospitals, Good Samaritan here in Palm Beach and JFK, they are for-profit. Their first obligation is to return profit to their shareholders. That's not their patients. That's not us. And though we need their services, we need them to also help us with this. So knowing we have this mix, and we do have some very generous foundations, the good news is the very wealthy part of our community are very charitable. They do all kinds of things. But poverty is not something that they reach as much into as they do other causes. So therefore, we created the Promise Fund, and we promised that we would do all we could to not only find these women, but provide top-notch navigators. Now, who are navigators? navigators are well-trained people, women largely in this case, who sometimes have been nurses, sometimes social workers, who are brought on because they live in the communities where we know the greatest poverty is occurring and the greatest death rate. And they know how to communicate with the citizens in their community. And we have brought them on slowly, carefully, and deliberately. And we made a great partnership with one of our federally qualified healthcare centers. We have several of them actually in the Palm Beach County area. Found Care is one, Caridad is another, Genesis is another, and these wonderful centers provide primary care for patients. And they do a lot of other things, dental care, vaccinations, things that we need on a primary basis. But they don't provide diagnosis, and they don't provide surgery and or chemotherapy and other tools that we need. So there's a huge gap there. So we have to navigate people where we can get them. And that's what we're doing. To date, we have created a screening center for the purpose of finding out who we have to diagnose. At Found Care, we got a company named Hologic, which is one of the best manufacturers of mammography equipment, to give us a 3D mammography machine, and we installed it with the permission and partnership of Found Care. And we, to date, since we opened the center in mid-November, have screened 500 women. We have found 44 women we need to take another look at, and we have found 6 positive cases of women who definitely have breast cancer and where we are now searching to get them treated. And we have made an arrangement with our healthcare district in Palm Beach, but patients have to fulfill their definition of district cares. We have to turn the patients over to them after screening if they do have this disease. But we need many more resources. And so that's where we are. And we are very, very happy that we have concluded, in a way, the partnership about the first part of this issue and dilemma. Now we are well into finding how to direct them to physicians, to the care they need, the drugs they may need, the therapeutics, etc., and do it in a timely fashion and return them to their private lives. We also have a great emphasis on what we call the social determinants of care. So if one of these patients needs food, if they need transportation, if they need child care, we seek through other nonprofits in our community to gather these services.
You're using the word that I love, that I'm kind of speechless right now. I think my brain is just has gone kind of triggering in all different directions. Nancy, it's not that often that I'm speechless as a radio host, but currently I'm like sweating here. I'm warm. I'm overwhelmed. I really feel that that's what nonprofits need to do, and many do, is the collaborating, because many do the same services.
Right. Exactly.
You know, there's thousands of nonprofits, but I bet so many of them are doing the same thing. You know,
I couldn't agree with you more.
And there's there's only so many dollars.
Right.
And we're all fighting for the same dollars.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I don't work in the bigger organization today, because I had a terrible feeling of the cost of overhead. When your cost of overhead is forcing your founder and the person who believes in the mission with all their heart, generally as a lifetime cause. And I had the feeling all I was doing was raising money. That's all I was doing. I was thrilled because the result was good. I wanted to do more. And therefore, what you're saying is absolutely right. Wouldn't it be great if we had a decent-sized meeting one day and say, we're going to conduct a service audit. What are you doing, Susie? What are you doing, Mary? What are you doing, and how are you doing it? And if we looked at the overhead it costs to run these things, it's astonishing. And I believe that more of that has to go back into the basic missions we have all adopted. So, for example, we're trying in our own way by partnering. You know, having the federally qualified, having Found Care as our partner is amazing. Why? Because when we know we have a woman who we find to be positive for this disease, we can also say to our partner at Found Care, and she needs a vaccination, and she needs a blood study, and she needs dentistry, and you see what I mean?
Yes.
And if we could, and there's so many charities now in this county that frankly do have overlapping missions, and we need to be smart about that, because 2 + 2 often equals 5, not 4.
Yeah, and we all. I have my master's in social work, and I remember in school, I was teaching a class of new social work BS students, and I went around and said, why do you want to be in social work? Oh, I want to help people. I want to help people. I want to help people. But that's how these nonprofits start. Well, I want to, but then, like you say, these overlapping missions. So if everybody wants to help people, and we're all doing it separately, like that word silo, then we can do so much more together.
Right. Separately or not at all.
Yeah.
There are some charities in town who are doing cancer care, and I think it's amazing some of the things they do. One of the charities gives funding to patients that are currently in care. I think that's really important. But we've chosen a different way. We've chosen more of a population care index, because you're doing something different than every single day, rather than devoting what you can do in certain categories. Do you know what I mean? You can't, every time you change something, and you're short-staffed anyway, you're preventing yourself from growing in a certain way. And sometimes it's important to spin things off to other people who are doing it and take something they're doing which would fit your model better. It seems, and when you and I talk about it, it makes sense. It does make sense. Somebody just has to do it. And that's the other thing that I have to tell you.
Nancy. Let's do that forum. I think that would be just sign up, no cost. Everybody who has a nonprofit in Palm Beach County, here's the link. Sign up and let's find out what you're doing.
And here's what we're doing. What are you doing? Tell us the top 3 things you're doing, and give us an idea. And then you get people to, even if we did it online, you get people to share assets. Do you know how many people? The good news is we're able to work with the United Ways and the Community Foundation, and it's great for us. It's United Way is amazing that way. If they know somebody's doing something, they're interested in it. We don't need so many charities. I know it does hire a lot of people, but boy, oh boy. And it's especially frustrating when you can't find somebody who's already doing it and that you have to build it. Sometimes you do have to build it, like we had to build Susan Komen because there was no one who would talk about breast cancer in those days.
Wait, what year was that?
1981 when we started it. You couldn't use the word breast on radio, TV, or print. And the big organizations, the American Cancer Society, wouldn't let us come in and do a breast cancer program, nor would the doctors didn't believe it could be done. And mostly everyone shunned us. So that's why we went towards the for-profit market and started getting sponsors and people who, we basically ended up building it for people who wanted to do something for their workforce and their population and understood how big this disease was. And we were right. And we were right for a long time. And now there's a different model that needs to be done. That this is also what happens to charities. They sometimes change their model, but not in the right way. So I'm not commenting on anybody, really. I'm just saying that that's what I observe now. And
that was your sister.
Yeah,
my sister. So what do you think she would say to you today?
I think she would be saying this. What is, I really don't want to get into criticizing anybody. I don't. I have enormous respect for everybody who works, particularly in the cancer space. I think she would say, go small and stop spending so much money. All the cancer organizations start working in communities. Because why? Because there are few things today in communities that people don't know about cancer. They're either in a rural community where they know they need a certain amount of help. They know what the social determinants of health are. They understand what they need to do, but they need to be tailored to their community. if you're a poor rural community, you have different needs than a rich, wealthy, industrialized community. Now, I won't say industrialized anymore. Hardly anyone is, but let's call it a technified community, business community, and a wealthy town needs very different things than a poor rural community. But we all know that it's those needs that have to be met. So, it's difficult to get people to accept that. And we still have a lot of needs in research and a lot of good organizations. I think Komen still funds research. I know that other breast cancer research organizations are out there. That's something that I'm not as worried about, nearly as worried about, because why? Because people know the disease exists and they know that the disease has to be cured at some point. And that the only kind of research that I really think needs to be done is to take what we know and make sure the rest of the population has access to it.
Well, that's so simple, Nancy.
Yeah, well,
I understood that.
Yeah,
but
it's simple, but I've become the enemy of a lot of people because I say this. I say these kinds of things, and I'm sorry. I know people have jobs doing things, but at the end of the day, let's do what we need to do, not what we think we should do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm still sweating over here, Nance. I'm feeling it. Well, you said social. That's so interesting because what you're doing is understanding a community. You're not coming in there all, here we are to save you. You are understanding through the social workers and that you said are native of the community.
That's right.
And they understand. And maybe they're not going to listen to someone like me, there's cultural things that we don't know.
Exactly
and that's
right.
not wrong. It's wonderful.
If you take the average patient in Palm Beach County, and so we know it's somewhere like 85,000 that the registered data tell us. We know that if you add them in, it's like 160,000 people we have who are not being treated at the right time or screened. And we know what we know now.
Yeah.
So why aren't we doing it?
Because it's not scary. Like if you're a woman that goes every year for their mammogram, it's
right.
like you kind of just know. I know I always go in January.
That's right.
And I'm not afraid because that you're
right.
You know the drill.
Right.
But I can imagine if you don't know, or your mother was scared, or your family, you don't know. What you don't know hurts you sometimes.
Right. Or you're very poor. You're part of the rural poor. You're living in a community. All you have is maybe access to a midwife, maybe access to somebody's cousin who was a whatever.
Yeah.
And you don't have. My dream is that they take Found Care, these federally qualified centers, and put very well organized women's centers within them, so that they already do have women's care sort of in one place of the centers, but where there's a real women's center that would be for birthing and for disease and common disease and et cetera, and would only have to refer people for highly specialized kinds of diagnosis, but who would basically be able to do all the primary care things. And look, for example, at diabetes. Diabetes is now an office medicine. You go into your, and they'll say to you, here's your whatever is that called, A1C. Here's your this and that and the other thing. And most of the public understands it is a disease. It's a pancreatic situation. You're not producing. Your body isn't producing what it needs to be producing, and you're eating. Your diet often it can be at risk, or you got it genetically. So we now have lots of ways to monitor it. And the same with heart disease. Heart disease is still a major killer in our country. But look at the ways now you can go into a doctor's office, and look at that little thing you can put on your cell phone that can follow your heartbeat very carefully and tell you if you're out of sync or if you've gone into AFib or whatever. So we have already a lot of knowledge and a lot of technology that can deal with things. Telemedicine has been amazing. But we need to have a modernized system to deal with those who live, unfortunately, in poverty.
Amen. That's so, again, simple.
Yeah.
It sounds simple to me.
Yeah,
it
is simple if you just do it. And we've run into roadblocks. This has taken us 3.5 years to build this system. But that's because nobody did it before.
Yeah.
But we're making a systemic change now. And, we don't necessarily like all the things our partners do, but we just keep on it. Half of anything is just being continually a pain in somebody's side. And sooner or later, they'll just get tired of it and figure out a way to do it because they'll know that you're right.
Well, Nancy, my best friend, pain in the neck, Nancy, tell our audience, my sweet gal, because we just have a few minutes, guys.
Yeah.
I wish we could talk all day. Tell us somebody's listening. They need your help. Either they want to donate or get information. Where do we find you? What's the best number?
The way to find us is at thepromisefund.org, thepromisefundoflorida.org, on the website. And wait a second, now wouldn't you know it, I don't have my card here. We even have a phone number, which I'll have to call into you because I'm not where I usually work at this desk. But
the best thing is the website, www.promisefundoflorida.org.
Or promisefund.org.
Or .org, okay.
Either one. Try either one. But it will have all the information about our organization, and it will have places, information, places to call.
Great. Hey, Nancy, will you come back on so we can finish this?
I'd love to come back anytime.
I really have a lot more questions, and I know our audience does too. You really raised the hairs on my arm and got me sweating here, and I love you for what you're doing. Listen, we'll be in touch. Thank you.
It is promisefund.org.
Okay. Promisefund.org.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank
Nancy.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.